What's up, Scorpio? So we have finally got to your sign. You guys are going to be about the 17th video in this astrology series so far, and I think the 8th or 9th video in the sun signs portion of it. So we're going to talk about you guys. We're going to talk about qualities that you guys have, keywords that we should learn to associate with you guys. We'll talk about some famous Scorpios in this world and a whole bunch of other informative things about Scorpio. We maybe might spill some tea, you know, whatever. We're just going to get into it and it's going to be great. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to talk about surrounding Scorpio are going to be Scorpio's dates. So Scorpio's dates are going to be from October 23rd to November 21st. So if you fall in between those dates, you are definitely going to be Scorpio. If you came October 20th, you're going to be a Libra. If you came November 22nd, 23rd, so on, you're going to fall into the Sagittarius category. I don't particularly believe in cusps, but I said this in the other videos, and I guess I'll repeat it now. I'm planning on making a video on cusps later on in the series after I finished all of the sun signs. So after I do Pisces, I'll talk about cusps and why I don't believe in them. If you feel like you fall into a cusp category, it might be beneficial for you to watch that video, maybe get a different insight on why you may feel that way. If you don't care, then you don't have to watch it and we can just continue on with the video. So the next thing that we're going to talk about surrounding Scorpio is going to be the representation that Scorpio has. So Scorpio is going to be represented by the scorpion, which is basically, you know, this deadly insect that has a stinger that can, you know, be very fatal to its opponent. If you mess with them, well, you'll definitely get the stinger, whether it be physically, verbally, or through any other manner. Okay guys, so the next thing we're going to talk about is this glyph of Scorpio. It kind of looks like this. I'll insert a picture on the screen so you can physically see it. So this glyph is basically going to be a representation of reproductive organs, which is what Scorpio rules over, and also the stinger of the scorpion that we just talked about before. There are a couple more representations that you may link to this glyph, like in ancient times, this was also a symbolization of the phoenix. You know, if you don't know what a phoenix is, it's basically like this bird that I think it like turns into like fire or something like that. If I figure it out, I'll put like a picture somewhere on the screen or something like that. Basically like this very regenerative bird, and it's like transform and it's crazy, and like never underestimate the power of the phoenix. So like I said, this is going to be a representation of the phoenix in ancient times. And what was the phoenix a representation of during this time period? So the phoenix was linked to immortality and regeneration. This will come into play when we talk about the ruler of Scorpio later in this video, which is going to be Pluto. But just know that it was a representation of phoenix, and phoenix are linked to immortality and regeneration, which we can later on connect to Pluto. So let's move on to the last representation of this. So this glyph is basically curved lines and then an arrow at the end. So this is going to be a representation of strong emotion tied to practicality. Much like with the Virgo glyph, it also has that line that goes through the last end of it, and that line is practicality as well. So with Scorpio, it's going to be those emotions tied to practicality. So this glyph overall is going to be like a representation of the aim to higher consciousness that Scorpions and how can I explain this? I talked about this in a couple other videos, and I think I first talked about it in the Aries video, since that was the first sun signs video that I made on this, besides the video that talked about what a sun sign is. If you didn't watch those videos, I'll leave those links in the description if you're interested in watching them. But basically what I was saying is that in the zodiac, each sign is going to represent a specific archetype that we have in this world, and what they are, like why we need them in this world, like why their characteristics and those qualities are necessary for us to go through this cycle of life that the zodiac is supposed to be a representation of. So for example, Aries is going to be that child, the first sign, the first one that's exposed to everything that this world has to offer. And so now we are at the sign of Scorpio, which is coming after Libra, the sign of partnership, and we are going to need to talk about regeneration. This Plutonian energy, which a role that I will talk about later in this video, basically is the cause of this need of this archetype in this world, because Pluto represents transformation, and Scorpio is going to represent that as well. So when we talk about this glyph and we talk about how it's supposed to be an aim towards higher consciousness, that's what I mean by that. Basically, this sign is going to be that sign that we use where we have Leo beginning, that comes before this as the 5th sign, that's going to be talking about themselves, love themselves, and all of that. When we get to Scorpio, we're going to talk about how we can change ourselves for the better, how we can regenerate and transform ourselves to have a better outcome when we finally talk about Pisces, the last sign in these archetypes and the last sign in the zodiac. So we're going to move on to this next thing surrounded by Scorpio, which is going to be how Scorpio is a water sign. So Scorpio being a water sign is going to be the most focused sign out of these water signs, meaning that okay, so we talked about Cancer, which is the first water sign in the zodiac, and Cancer is basically going to be concerned with the initial feel of a situation emotionally. So like that's why you might meet a Cancer or be around a Cancer and feel like they just take everything so personal, or you know, like they don't really wait to understand a situation emotionally, rather than they just immediately react to how that situation is making them feel in the moment, whether that be angrily, upset, whatever. When we get to Scorpio, we are going to talk about how Scorpio is going to feel that deeper feeling surrounded by these emotions of a situation. And then when we finally get to Pisces, we'll talk about that overall feeling of the emotions in that situation and how it has been transformed through Scorpio and the other signs that came before and after it, finally to the overall feel. Okay, so what else do we need to know about Scorpio being a water sign? Being a water sign, Scorpios are very in touch with their emotions, which leads them to be signs that are very capable of connecting emotionally to other people. And this might sound a little bit weird because Scorpios are usually labeled as being more private signs, but you can be private and still be able to connect with people and understand them, or make that person feel more understood. Even if you're not close to a Scorpio, though, you may be able to see this. Like, for example, if you meet a Scorpio moon or a Scorpio rising, something like that, on top of maybe the other things that you may get initially when you meet that person, you will definitely feel like this kind of like connection to them once they start talking to you, because Scorpios have a way of, like, I don't know, like finding one quality at least about a person and being able to connect with them about that, whether you might not even think like, oh, this is something so weird about myself, I didn't think that a Scorpio would be able to, let alone like connect to this, or let alone make me feel understood for having this quality about myself. Like, Scorpios have that that quality about them that just makes people around them feel more understood, unless you know you're getting that stinker side of Scorpio where it's like, yo, you're a weirdo, I don't care about whatever this is, I'm not connecting to you, I don't like you, whatever. But what else should we know about Scorpio's water sign before we move on to the next topic? Like all the other water signs, Scorpio is going to have this intuition, which is kind of like what I talked about before. When they step into a situation, they may be able to feel it out immediately, or maybe they're just sitting in a situation, they're like, oh, I feel like something's about to happen, like, I don't know, I'm just having this feeling, or, you know, whatever way that you want to come up with your definition of intuition, Scorpios have it much like all these other water signs. So if you feel like you're about to step into next part of your life that may transform you, like this Plutonian energy that we're talking about, you might want to talk to your Scorpio friend or anyone with a lot of Scorpio influence and maybe get their insight on the situation, because, you know, that intuition might be of value to you. Okay, so I know I mentioned this a lot, but basically the next topic in this video is going to be how Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So I said how Pluto is going to be that planet that rules over regeneration and transformation. Scorpio was also the ancient god of the netherworld and death. This might be why you might meet a Scorpio and feel like they're very intense people, or like, and I feel like that word is used a lot when you talk about Scorpio, and then like because people use it so much, it kind of seems like a bad thing, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing, because what comes with this like intensity surrounded by Pluto, this intensity is what allows Scorpio to be able to connect with people, like I talked about before, to have this intuition, to be able to feel out a situation, and that intensity that's needed to fully transform yourself. Because how can you not be like completely enveloped in a situation, you know, before actually being able to transform. Like, you need to be able to have this intensity to be that sign of transformation, because if you transform, you can't just transform one part of you. You got to transform your whole thing. You got to transform a whole situation and everything surrounding it. So that's what you can take away from the Scorpio intensity that you might have maybe when you first meet a Scorpio rising or somebody with a Scorpio moon or whatever. My camera just cut off, but you might meet somebody with a Scorpio influence in their chart and be like, when I first met that person, maybe they rubbed you the wrong way, or maybe they were just like too much for you in that moment without even having to say anything. Maybe they made you uncomfortable because of the Scorpio intensity. Whatever it might be, it's like they can't help but have that that vibration about them, because like this is what they get from being ruled by Pluto. But that can be good and or bad. They might be too intense in a situation to be able to actually feel it out on somebody else's perspective. They might be too intense to you know, like kind of calm down in a situation and actually take in all parts of it before acting, or you know, something like that. There's always a good and a bad side to a specific quality that somebody might have or a sign might have. What you need to be able to understand based off of these videos is that a more developed sign will be able to manifest the good qualities surrounded by a quality or a trait that a sign might have, compared to manifesting more the bad side of these qualities. Being ruled by Pluto allows Scorpio to be the sign of empowerment. Okay, so Leos feel very empowered about themselves, having this sun energy. They feel very bright. They always want to share themselves with other people. And you might be like, well, how is Scorpio the sign of empowerment if this is a quality that Leo has? But the difference between Leo and Scorpios is that Scorpios have that more deeper meaning surrounded by this, meaning that they can fully understand that they're being empowered or that they're empowering other people. Whereas Leo, being more early in the zodiac, is kind of just doing it without necessarily realizing what they're doing. Like, you know, you can love yourself, but can you actually identify that what you're doing is loving yourself or just being yourself? You know what I mean? Because those are technically two different things. You can be yourself, but until you get to a point where it's like, maybe you were in a situation where somebody wanted you to change an aspect of yourself and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's you empowering yourself. When you get to that Scorpio sign, that's when you actually get to recognize what's actually happening, this empowerment that Pluto energy gives them. Okay, so the last thing that we need to know about Scorpio is that Scorpio is going to rule beginnings and ends. In order to transform, you need to know how you were in the beginning, and you need to know how you were at the end. And, you know, you take all of that energy and then you go warp it up, and then you have that new start or that new beginning that you have, whereas the end, which is why I said that Pluto was the ancient god that ruled over death. Because when you think about death, you might just mean like somebody dying, but it doesn't have to be a person. It can be a situation. It can be you know, stage in your life that you were in that's now coming to an end or is now dying off, so that you can start a new beginning. Doesn't necessarily have to be somebody dying literally. It can just be, you know, more metaphorical, whereas the situation is ending. So the next thing that we're going to talk about Scorpio is going to be the body parts that Scorpio rules over. So Scorpio is going to rule over the reproductive organs and or genitalia. So that sounds a little weird, but like, let's dive into this. Okay, so when you hear about Scorpio, you might hear like, oh, Scorpios have a very high sex drive, or Scorpios are very sexual people, or blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, that might be true, but it's also like one of those stereotypes surrounded by signs that I talked about. And I think the first video on this page, which is what I wanted to combat before going into anything. I didn't want to start a channel and like people see that I have an astrology channel and be like, oh, that's just going to talk about all these other things that everybody else talks about. No, because I feel like that's basic. I feel like there are a lot of things that people might hear about astrology that aren't necessarily accurate, and I want to combat those things in my channel. So this stereotype surrounded by Scorpio, where it's like Scorpios are very sexual, where you might meet a Scorpio that might fit into that category. I want to talk about why you might have that Scorpio fit into that category, which is they are ruled by Pluto, and they are the sign ruled by Scorpion, and their glyph is going to be literally a
3 hours later.
All right. just gonna keep going because I live in Philadelphia. So let's just, you know, keep going, and hopefully I'll be able to block this noise out. Restart. Okay. We're talking about the body parts that Scorpio rules over, which is going to be reproductive organs and genitalia. So I talked about how there are a lot of stereotypes in astrology. One of those is that Scorpio is going to be a sign that's very sexual, that hyperactive sexually or whatever. Where you might meet a Scorpio that has this quality about them that might be true. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily true or generalizable to the rest of the Scorpio population. But I want to talk about if you may meet a Scorpio that has these qualities, why that might be, which is that Scorpio rules over these body parts, rule over genitalia and or reproduction organs that are involved in sex. Okay, but basically I talk about the body parts that each sign rules over so that I can I don't know, I think it's a cool tidbit to know. But also, I want to note that there can be problems linked to this. Specifically, like with Aries, I talked about when an Aries gets too stressed out, they might get headaches. And how, you know, when a Cancer is uncomfortable, maybe they have chest pains, or they have, you know, like upper respiratory issues that they need to be aware of. With Scorpios being ruling over genitalia and or the reproduction organs, you just need to be careful. What if you are a very sexual Scorpio? If you are a very sexual Scorpio, just be careful. Watch out for any infections that you may contract. Whether you're Scorpio or not, you need to watch out for that regardless. What else? Watch out for UTIs, things like that. You know, just make sure that your body part that your sign rules over is in check always, because it's important. Okay, we're going to talk about some more qualities that we can associate with Scorpio. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is how Scorpio is going to be the sign of extremes. So what does this mean? Basically, it means that Scorpios are going to be very passionate with anything that they do. Like, you might meet a Scorpio and be like, yo, that person's too dramatic, I don't want to be around that person. But it's like, they can't help it. Like, they're the sign of extremes. They're the sign that's ruled by Pluto and transformation. They can't go into a situation without, you know, feeling that deeper meaning and or being dramatic, because, you know, it's just in them. Like, it just like their sister sign, which I did a video on this before. So if you want to learn more about this or go more in depth about this sister sign energy that Taurus and Scorpio have, like Taurus, Scorpio is going to be a sign that might be pretty possessive, whether that be about their friends or material items. I talked about how these signs are both going to be associated with their possessions and or material things, and they're very possessive about the things, whether it be the emotion that they have tied to it, the fact that it's just theirs and nobody else should be touching it. That's another quality that Scorpio may have, and I just, you know, wanted to link that back to Taurus because I want you guys to be able to look at these videos and, you know, just like make these connections. And sometimes you might need an example of that, so I don't know, that's why I gave it to you. Next quality surrounded by Scorpio. Scorpio is a very determined sign, so when they start something, they're going to see it to its finish. And if anybody tries to mess up the process that they're going through to get that shit done, well, good luck, because you will get that stinger. And what else should we know about Scorpio? Scorpios can be a little bit manipulative and or vengeful. Like, if you fuck a Scorpio over, good luck, because, you know, they are not going to forget that. I don't even know if they'll forgive you. If they're a developed sign, they might forgive you, but they're still not going to forget. So, you know, good luck with that. Scorpios don't like being told what to do, and they also wait until the right moment to start something and or end something. It might not even be like the right moment. Like, you might know a Scorpio that just does not know when to end shit. That might be a Scorpio that you need to have a conversation with and be like, listen, you are the sign of transformation. You are the sign of regeneration, which means you need to know when shit needs to end. If you got that crusty ass boyfriend or whoever in your life that just needs to be out of your life, let that Scorpio know. Let them know it's time to go. You are the sign of ending shit. You need to know when you need to end something. You need to know when you need to leave a situation. And, you know, if you are a friend of a Scorpio, mother of a Scorpio, brother of a Scorpio, whoever to a Scorpio, and they're not doing that shit, let them know. Keep them on track. Like, every sign needs to play their role. Scorpio can't play the role if they don't know, like, yo, I'm actually not doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now. Let them know. Scorpios know what to say in a situation, okay? Scorpios know when they need to lie, or they might not even know. I mean, when do you really need to lie, though? If you need to lie, I mean, they know when to lie. When they feel like they need to lie, they're gonna lie, and you might not even be able to see through it because, you know, that's not. Or you might be somebody that knows a Scorpio well enough to be able to know when they are lying, and if you do, well, good luck, because they're still not going to admit that they were lying. They're going to see that shit to its grave. They are not going to admit when they're lying. They're not really going to admit when they're wrong in a situation either, to be honest. You know. But, a more developed Scorpio might be able to do that. More developed Scorpio might not feel the need to lie in a situation for whatever reason. A more developed sign, whether it be Scorpio or not, might be able to tell more when somebody is lying in or manipulating them or whatever. But what else should we know about Scorpio? Scorpios, I talked about how Scorpios are going to be the sign of extremes. But Scorpios can actually be pretty subtle too. Like, for example, when you first meet a Scorpio, they might not even say anything to you and make you feel some type of way, whether that's good or bad. They, you know, they have that subtle nature to them that they might be able to use to their advantage to get what they want. You know, like, I don't know how else to explain it. Like, they can be subtle or they can be extreme. Whatever way they feel like they need to be in a situation, that's what they're going to do. So the next thing we're going to talk about are some keywords that we can associate with Scorpio, which are going to be I transform or I desire. So I talked about how Scorpios don't like being told what to do. If you're trying to tell a Scorpio what to do, good luck, because they desire what they want, and like I talked about how they're very determined. Like, don't try and get in their way. And I've been talking about this whole video how Scorpio is a sign of transformation. So those are the keywords that we can associate with them. And the last thing that we're going to talk about in this video is going to be famous Scorpios in this world. So who are some famous Scorpios in this world? There's Future, Drake, Pablo Picasso was a Scorpio, Voltaire was a Scorpio, Katy Perry, did I say Bill Gates? Bill Gates was one, and Hillary Clinton. You can look at Hillary Clinton, you know, she's a politician, and I talked about how Scorpios know what to say in a situation. So like with Hillary being a politician, or any other politician as a Scorpio, they are going to know how to, you know, manage their campaign. They're going to know what they need to say in those debates to get ahead and or try to get ahead. You know what I mean? The whole point of this series is going to be to allow you guys to take this information that I give you and or apply it to a larger scale, or apply it just to your general knowledge of astrology. Even if you're a Scorpio and you're just going to keep waiting until I post a video on Scorpio, I'm posting a lot of information that you might even be able to apply to your knowledge of yourself as a Scorpio. So it might be beneficial for you to watch all of these videos. No, not might be. It's going to be beneficial. Just watch. Thank you for visiting my channel, new or old, and stay tuned. Bye, guys.